In the deep cold of space there was silence. Stars burned far away but nothing moved between them. Then a signal appeared on the scanners of a passing alien ship. At first the crew thought it was only space junk. A broken shape floated in the dark, turning slowly like a piece of forgotten metal. The alien commander ordered the crew to bring it on screen. The image showed a large vessel, dark and lifeless, its surface covered with scars of old battles. It looked like a ship from another age, abandoned for centuries. The crew spoke in low voices. They had never seen such a design before. Its shape was sharp, heavy, and strange, like a predator waiting in silence. Most wrecks looked broken and harmless, but this one gave them a strange feeling. The commander tried to hide his unease. He told the crew it was just a relic and that they should scan it. Perhaps it carried technology or data they could sell. The ship drifted closer, and the alien vessel moved alongside it. Their scanners reached out, touching the cold metal. For a moment nothing happened. The screens showed the basic structure: steel, armor, and strange energy coils long without power. But then something strange appeared. A pulse inside the wreck. A rhythm like a heartbeat. The alien science officer frowned. He checked the readings again. It was still there. The commander ordered a full scan. The crew hesitated, but they obeyed. The scan beams passed over the wreck, peeling away its secrets layer by layer. More details appeared: chambers, tunnels, weapons hidden under the hull. The science officer's voice grew tense. The ship was not empty. There were traces of something alive. Not many, maybe only one, but the signal was clear. The crew shifted in their seats. Whispers filled the room. Was it a survivor? Could anything live inside such a dead vessel? The commander silenced them with a sharp order. He stared at the screen. The readings grew stronger. Energy flowed through the wreck like blood through veins. Something was waking. The alien ship moved a little farther back, but it was already too late. The dark vessel seemed to respond to the scan. Lights appeared along its surface, faint at first but growing brighter. One by one, small windows glowed, like eyes opening after a long sleep. The crew gasped. Ships did not wake by themselves. Not after centuries. The commander felt a weight in his chest. He had seen many derelicts before, but never one that fought back. He ordered the scan to stop, but the science officer shook his head. The wreck was no longer passive. It was reading them back. Their own systems flickered as unknown signals struck their computers. It was not only awake, it was aware. Silence filled the command deck. Everyone stared at the dark screen. The alien vessel was scanning them now, studying their shields, their weapons, their weaknesses. The commander barked orders to raise defenses, but deep inside he knew it was useless. They had poked something that should have been left alone. The crew waited for an attack that did not come. The wreck floated silently, its lights glowing like embers in the night. But in that silence there was danger. It felt like a predator watching prey, waiting for the right moment. The commander whispered to himself that it was only a machine. But the crew saw his fear. They felt it too. One young officer asked if they should retreat. Another said they should destroy it before it was fully awake. Their voices rose with fear, but the commander hesitated. Something about the vessel froze him. The design, the strength of the armor, the energy hidden inside, it all spoke of a race far older, far more dangerous. Then a word appeared on the screen. A single word, written in symbols none of them recognized. The crew stared. The science officer tried to translate, but the systems failed. The word remained, glowing in harsh white. It was a message, but not one meant for them. The commander leaned closer. He felt the cold truth. They had not found a wreck. They had found something left behind. Something waiting. The ship rotated slowly in space, turning its dark face toward them. The glowing word faded, and in its place came a low hum. Energy built inside the hull, silent but unstoppable. The alien crew knew the hum of power. It was the sound of weapons, of shields, of life returning. They had awakened it. The commander gave the order to retreat, but the engines stalled. Systems across the alien ship failed one after another. It was as if the strange vessel was pulling power from them, feeding on their fear. The crew shouted in panic. Lights flickered, screens went dark, and still the wreck glowed brighter. And then it stopped. The hum ended. The power died. The strange ship drifted again, cold and silent as before. The commander did not understand. The crew looked at each other in terror. Was it over? Or was it only waiting for the next move? The science officer looked at the readings one last time. His voice shook as he reported. The biological signal was still there. Stronger now. Whatever was inside the ship was awake. The commander sat frozen in his chair. He realized the truth too late. This was no ordinary wreck. It was not an empty ship. It was a trap. And they had walked right into it. The alien vessel drifted in uneasy silence. The strange wreck before them floated without movement, yet the crew felt it was watching them. Fear pressed against their chests, but orders were orders. The commander's voice was sharp as he demanded a deeper scan. The science officer obeyed, fingers shaking as he sent another wave of energy across the dark hull. At first the results were normal, only layers of heavy armor and strange alloys. But then the readings twisted. The ship was not only metal. There were pockets of organic matter deep inside, small but alive. The officer's eyes widened as he spoke. Something biological was there. Not dead. Not decayed. Alive. The crew whispered among themselves. The idea was impossible. How could anything survive inside a ship that had floated in space for centuries? The commander snapped at them to stay focused. He demanded more data. The scan grew stronger, peeling away the walls of the vessel layer by layer. Suddenly the consoles flared with warnings. Unknown energy signatures appeared. Strange pulses of power shot back through their systems as if the ship was resisting. The science officer tried to adjust the scanner, but his voice cracked. The wreck was not only receiving the scan. It was scanning them back. The commander cursed and told him to cut the beam, but the damage was already done. Their systems flickered and lights dimmed across the control room. Strange symbols began flashing on their screens, symbols that belonged to no known language. The crew stared in silence. Some swore the shapes looked like warnings. Others felt they were being marked like prey. The science officer reported in a trembling voice that the biological signal was growing stronger. It was not only awake. It was aware of them. The commander tried to sound brave, but doubt was in his voice. He ordered shields raised. Weapons charged. The crew obeyed, but their hands shook. None of them had ever faced anything like this. They were used to scavenging ruins and looting derelicts, not fighting ghosts of old wars. Then the wreck pulsed with light again. A ripple of energy spread across its hull, not random but controlled. The ship was alive in ways no one understood. The crew gasped as the scanners showed weapons hidden under its surface, weapons still armed after centuries. The science officer whispered the word dreadnought. The commander turned on him, demanding an explanation. The officer hesitated, then explained. A dreadnought was a legend, a warship built by an ancient race rumored to have vanished. The humans. Stories said their ships were impossible to defeat, that whole fleets had fallen against a single one. Most dismissed such tales as myths. But here before them was proof. The crew grew pale. The commander shouted that it was only a machine, a ruin, nothing more. But no one believed him. The data was clear. The biological reading was human. The signal inside the ship matched an ancient pattern stored in alien archives. The crew trembled as they realized they had woken a human. The silence on the deck grew heavy. No one spoke. Only the hum of their failing systems filled the air. Then the human ship acted. Without warning, a low transmission echoed through their comms. At first it was static, broken and harsh. Then words formed, not in their language but in the forgotten speech of old Earth. None of them could understand it, but the tone was cold and commanding. It was not a request. It was a warning. The alien crew froze. Some covered their ears as the voice repeated again and again, louder each time. The commander shouted for it to be silenced, but the systems no longer obeyed. The transmission cut through every channel. Their ship was no longer theirs. Then the screens went black. For one long moment nothing moved. Then the alien vessel shook as a wave of energy hit them. Alarms screamed. Power dropped across the ship. The dreadnought was testing them. It was pulling data from every circuit, stripping their defenses, learning their weaknesses. The science officer cried out that their codes were being broken. Their weapons were already useless. Panic spread through the crew. Some shouted to fire at once, others begged to run, but the commander's voice was lost in the storm. The dreadnought had taken control of the moment. Lights flickered across its hull like glowing veins. The ship was no longer silent. It was alive and watching. The commander made his choice. He ordered every weapon to fire. But when the crew tried, nothing happened. Their systems were dead. They were like insects trapped in a web. The commander slammed his fist against the console, but it did not matter. The wreck was not a wreck. It was a predator that had been waiting in the dark for a signal to wake it. And they had given it that signal. The dreadnought rotated slowly, bringing its weapons into view. They gleamed with cold light, ancient but still deadly. The alien crew stared in horror. They had wanted treasure, knowledge, or salvage. Instead they had uncovered death. The commander could only whisper one word before the deck shook again. Run. But in space there was nowhere to run. The alien ship trembled as the dark dreadnought continued to stir from its long sleep. Inside the command deck fear spread like fire. Every console flickered, every light burned with unstable glow, and the sound of alarms filled the air. The commander barked orders, but his voice carried little power now. The crew looked to him, yet none believed escape was possible. They all knew what was happening. Their scan had awakened something that should never have been disturbed. Deep inside the massive vessel shadows shifted. Chambers long sealed opened slowly with a hiss of stale air. Strange machines came alive again, blinking with red light, as if recognizing the passage of time meant nothing to them. Some looked half mechanical and half organic, alive in ways the aliens could not understand. The dreadnought pulsed with power, a heartbeat echoing through the void, felt even inside the alien ship. The science officer tried to track the energy, but the readings were beyond his knowledge. He whispered that the power source was impossible, something far older than their technology, something that should not exist. The commander ignored his words, but the truth was clear in his eyes. The dreadnought was not just a relic. It was a fortress with a soul. Then it happened. The first sound came across the alien comms again. It was not static this time. It was a voice. A human voice, distorted yet strong, speaking in that dead language of Earth. Though no one understood the words, the tone carried a sharp weight. It was not friendly. It was not pleading. It was commanding. The crew listened in terror as the message repeated, growing louder, more clear, until it shook their ears. Then the ship itself responded. Long corridors deep inside lit up one by one as dormant systems powered on. Doors opened with metallic groans. Mechanical arms unfolded. Weapons shifted into position. The dreadnought was waking like a beast stretching after endless sleep. On the alien deck chaos spread. One officer shouted that the biological reading was moving. The human inside was no longer still. The science officer confirmed in a voice that cracked under fear. Whatever life form had rested in cryosleep was now awake. The commander's skin turned pale. Myths spoke of humans as warriors who never stopped until the enemy was broken. And now one of them lived again. The crew argued in panic. Some begged to flee even without engines. Some wanted to try and destroy the dreadnought before it was fully awake. But none dared fire. Their weapons had already been drained, their systems stripped bare. They were powerless. The dreadnought's external lights shone brighter, casting long shadows across its massive body. The alien crew felt as if eyes were staring at them from the dark. Then the comms filled with a sharp piercing sound that silenced everyone. The human voice returned, only this time it was translated. The systems of the alien ship twisted against them, forcing the message into their own language. Every screen displayed the same words. "You should not have touched us." The crew froze in horror. The commander's mouth went dry. It was not a warning anymore. It was a sentence. One officer cried out, asking what it wanted. Another whispered that it was not asking anything. It was deciding their fate. Inside the dreadnought, a cryopod hissed open. Mist spread across the chamber, and a figure stepped forward. Pale skin, eyes cold as ice, armored in black steel that glimmered with strange light. A human soldier. His breath was steady, his movements slow but strong. He did not stumble like one waking from centuries of sleep. He walked with purpose, as if he had only closed his eyes for a moment. He touched the walls of the chamber, and the entire dreadnought seemed to respond. Systems flared alive. Weapons glowed. The hum of energy filled the void louder than before. The alien science officer cried that power levels were rising beyond measurement. The dreadnought was at full strength. The commander tried one last desperate act. He opened a channel and spoke. His words were pleading, offering peace, offering surrender, anything to survive. For a moment silence followed. Then the human turned his head, as if listening. Slowly, without expression, he spoke. His voice carried through the comms perfectly now, translated into their tongue. The words were cold, sharp, without mercy. "This is not your place." The crew shivered. The commander tried again, but the human ignored him. Instead he raised his hand, and the dreadnought moved. Its cannons extended. Its shields crackled. The alien ship shook as its systems failed completely, drained dry by the predator they had awakened. The human's face appeared on their screen for the first time. His eyes were not just human eyes. They glowed faintly with something more, something evolved, something terrifying. The crew recoiled. They realized then that this was not just an ordinary man. This was a soldier from a race that had chosen to vanish, leaving behind machines of war as guardians. And now, one of those guardians had returned. The human raised his voice once more. "You came searching for wreckage. You found a warning. Leave or be destroyed." The commander tried to give the order to retreat, but nothing answered. Their ship was a husk now, powerless in the shadow of the dreadnought. The crew broke down into screams and sobs as they realized the truth. Escape was no longer in their hands. Their lives rested in the judgment of the last human. The dreadnought floated like a shadow of death, its dark hull glowing with faint lines of power as the human soldier inside claimed full control. The alien crew sat frozen in terror as their powerless vessel drifted within firing range. Every console was black, every weapon silenced, every shield gone. They were blind and naked before a predator of legend. The commander clenched his fists but could not hide the fear on his face. He had commanded many battles, faced enemies across galaxies, but nothing compared to this. On the main screen the human's face remained, calm and merciless, his eyes burning with cold light. His voice echoed again, steady and sharp, each word cutting through the silence. "You should have left. You should have looked away. Now you must listen." The alien crew stared as the dreadnought systems pulsed with new life. Strange drones detached from its hull, small mechanical shapes that moved with terrifying speed. They circled the alien vessel like wolves circling prey. Each one glowed with blue fire, carrying weapons the aliens did not understand. The commander shouted for calm, ordering the crew to remain still. But their panic only grew. Some whispered prayers, others begged the commander to plead for mercy. He tried, speaking again into the comms, his voice trembling as he explained they meant no harm. They were explorers, scavengers, not soldiers. But the human's face showed no change. He spoke again, voice colder than before. Explorers do not disturb graves. You have touched what is forbidden. The science officer cried out as their screens flickered back to life, but only to show them their own ship from every angle. The dreadnought was projecting images of them, scanning every part of their vessel in perfect detail. Their weaknesses, their life signs, their every secret laid bare before the humans' eyes. The crew realized they were not speaking to a relic. They were speaking to a living archive of war. The commander tried to keep order, but his words fell apart when another message appeared on every screen. Ancient footage from old wars played before their eyes. Fleets of alien races burned under human dreadnought fire. Worlds shattered by weapons beyond imagination. Armies crushed with ruthless precision. The images were endless. The aliens could not look away. Some wept openly, others shook in silence, their bodies trembling. They saw what humanity had been and what it could be again. The commander's heart sank. The stories were true. The humans had once been gods of war. And one of them was awake again. Then the human's voice returned, harsher this time. You are warned. Leave this place. Spread this message. Tell your kind that the void is not empty. Tell them humanity is not gone. The words chilled every soul on board. It was not just a warning. It was a command to carry fear across the stars. The commander realized the human did not need to destroy them. Terror was stronger than destruction. Terror would spread. The drones outside pulsed brighter, their weapons humming, reminding the crew of their helplessness. Then the alien ship groaned as power flickered back into its engines. Systems that had been dead sparked alive, but they were not under the crew's control. The dreadnought was forcing them online, pushing their vessel toward escape. The commander gave a desperate order to stop, but the ship did not obey. It was as if invisible hands were guiding it away, forcing it to retreat whether they wanted to or not. The science officer shouted that their coordinates were being set, that the dreadnought was programming their course. The commander's voice broke as he asked where. The answer came instantly on the screen. Home. The human wanted them to flee back to their own world carrying the nightmare with them. The crew protested, shouting, crying, but they were powerless. The dreadnought had already chosen. The human soldier leaned closer to the screen, his eyes burning brighter, his words falling like stone. If you return, there will be no warning. There will be no mercy. The screen went black. Silence returned, but it was the kind of silence that crushed the soul. The alien ship's engines roared back to life, the first true sound from their vessel since it had been enslaved by the dreadnought. Slowly, without their will, it turned away. The drones broke formation, pulling back into the dreadnought like wolves returning to their master. The massive ship floated still, watching, waiting, its weapons quiet but ready. The alien commander sat in his chair, unable to breathe. His crew looked at him with hollow eyes, broken by fear. He wanted to tell them it was over, that they were safe, but the words would not come. Deep in his chest he knew the truth. They had not survived because of mercy. They had survived because the dreadnought wanted its warning carried into the galaxy. They were not victors. They were messengers of terror. As their ship drifted into the dark, the dreadnought's lights dimmed once again, its hull sinking back into silence like a predator returning to the shadows. But the crew could not forget the voice, the images, the promise of death. The commander clenched his fists one last time as the stars stretched before them. They had awoken something that was never meant to be disturbed. And now the galaxy would know humanity still waited in the void. The alien ship raced through space under the forced guidance of the dreadnought's will, its crew trembling and broken, but just as they thought they were escaping the nightmare, a sudden shockwave slammed against their hull. Alarms screamed again as lights flared red. The commander lurched forward demanding answers, but the science officer shouted that the dreadnought had locked onto them once more. The crew gasped in despair. They had been given a warning, forced to flee, but now the human vessel had chosen to act. The massive warship stirred with deadly grace, its weapons unfolding from hidden ports like blades drawn from sheaths. The alien crew could only stare in horror as beams of energy lit the void, brighter than stars, cutting across the darkness toward them. Shields that had only just returned shattered in a single strike. The ship shook violently, sparks rained across the deck, and several crew members fell from their stations. The commander barked for a damage report, but the news was worse than he could imagine. Whole sections of the hull were gone, torn away in one instant as though carved by invisible knives. The crew screamed as oxygen vents hissed and systems failed. The dreadnought had shown its teeth at last. Panic erupted. Some crew shouted to surrender, others cried for escape, but the commander's voice roared above them, ordering weapons to fire. The alien ship spat out its arsenal, beams and missiles streaking through the void. But against the dreadnought it was like throwing stones at a mountain. Every shot was absorbed by its shields, every missile cut apart by the drones that swarmed like angry predators. The alien crew watched helplessly as their best weapons failed without leaving a scratch. Then the dreadnought retaliated. A single blast erupted from its cannons, striking one of the alien ship's weapon arrays. The explosion shook them harder than any impact before, filling the deck with choking smoke. The commander realized the human was not trying to kill them outright. It was dismantling them piece by piece, showing its power, breaking their spirit. On the screens the human soldier appeared again, his face calm, his eyes glowing with merciless light. His words echoed through the comms, sharp as blades. "You did not listen. Now you will learn." The alien crew froze, their fear turning to despair. Another strike followed, ripping through their engines. The vessel spun helplessly in the void. Sparks danced across the control panels as systems went dark one by one. The science officers screamed that they were defenseless, that they could not even move, but the commander clenched his jaw and shouted that they would fight to the last. His words fell flat in the choking silence. The dreadnought's drones moved in closer, their glowing forms circling like vultures waiting for the kill. Each one carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The crew watched as they positioned themselves around the alien vessel, trapping them in a cage of light. Then the human voice returned, calm but heavy with threat. "This is the first strike. This is the reminder. Spread fear, or be destroyed." The commander shook his head, unable to believe the cruelty of the words. This was no battle. This was a lesson. The dreadnought did not want victory. It wanted legend. It wanted the galaxy to remember. The commander tried to speak, to plead once more, but before he could finish another blast shook the ship. This time the dreadnought's beam stopped just short of the command deck, grazing the hull and flooding the room with fire. The crew coughed and cried out as the air grew thin. For a moment they thought the end had come. But the human's voice spoke once more, softer yet far more terrifying. "Leave. Remember. Warn them all." And then, without warning, the drones pulled back. The beams of energy faded. The dreadnought stilled once again, watching silently as the alien vessel drifted crippled and burning. Systems sparked alive for a final time, pushed by the dreadnought's control, forcing the alien ship's engines to engage. It turned their course sharply away, flinging them into the dark, away from the predator. The commander sat in silence, chest heavy, unable to speak. His crew stared at him with hollow eyes, their voices broken, their spirit gone. They had survived, but not through victory, not through strength. They had been allowed to survive, chosen to survive, forced to carry the memory of this first strike. The dreadnought hung behind them in silence, its lights fading once more, returning to stillness as if nothing had happened. But in the hearts of the alien crew the truth was burned forever. Humanity was not extinct. Humanity was not forgotten. And if this was only the first strike, then the galaxy would soon learn what it meant to wake a human war machine. The alien vessel limped through the void, broken and scarred, its hull glowing faint from fires that refused to die. Inside the command deck silence lay heavy, broken only by the crackle of damaged circuits and the faint gasps of wounded crew. The commander sat slumped in his chair, his eyes staring into nothing, his mind lost in the terror of what they had just witnessed. Around him his officers worked in trembling silence, patching systems, checking survivors, but none spoke of the dreadnought. They were all afraid that even speaking its name might call it back. Yet in the quiet, the science officer kept staring at the screens, his hands shaking as he scrolled through the data stolen during the scans. His eyes widened as the truth unfolded before him. Finally, with a voice hoarse from fear, he whispered that the dreadnought was not only a machine. It was history itself, a record of what humans once were. The commander turned slowly, demanding an explanation, but the science officer's face was pale and his words faltered. He explained that when their scanners touched the dreadnought, it had touched them back, filling their systems with fragments of human archives. At first he thought it was meaningless code, but now he realized it was intentional. The human had wanted them to know. It had shown them glimpses of past wars, and now deeper files revealed the full truth. The aliens gathered close, their fear forgotten for a moment as they listened. The science officer spoke of a time when humans spread across the stars with endless ambition. They built ships larger and stronger than anything in the galaxy. They were explorers, yes, but also warriors without equal. Every race that challenged them had fallen. But then, without warning, humans vanished. Not in defeat, not in weakness, but by choice. The archives told of a final order, a retreat into silence. The humans left behind dreadnoughts like this one, guardians waiting in the void, holding the line until the day they returned. The crew listened in disbelief, their hands shaking, their hearts heavy. The commander clenched his fists, anger mixing with fear. He shouted that such things were impossible, that no species could simply disappear by choice. But the evidence was clear. The data was real. The human soldier they had seen was not a ghost. He was proof. One of the last guardians, sleeping until awakened by fools who could not resist curiosity. The science officer's voice cracked as he added one final piece. The biological reading they detected was not one human. There were more, hidden deeper in the dreadnought, sealed in cryo-sleep. The one they saw was only the first. The others still waited. The crew gasped, their fear exploding into panic. If one soldier had destroyed them so easily, what would happen if an army awoke? The commander tried to silence them, but even his voice shook now. He looked out the viewport at the endless dark, knowing the dreadnought was still out there, waiting silently, letting them run so they would carry its story home. He realized the humans' true plan. It did not need to destroy them. Fear would spread faster than fire. Their people would hear, their allies would hear, and soon the entire galaxy would tremble at the whisper that humans still existed. The commander leaned forward, his voice breaking as he admitted the truth aloud. Humanity had not died. Humanity had hidden. And now it was waking again. The crew sat frozen as the words sank into their hearts. They were not survivors. They were chosen messengers. Every scar on their ship, every broken circuit, every terrified word they spoke would carry the message across the stars. The dreadnought had marked them forever. One officer broke down sobbing, begging to turn back and beg forgiveness. Another screamed that they should warn the galaxy to prepare for war. The commander silenced them both, his eyes hollow. There was no choice. The truth was bigger than them. They were only tools in the human plan. As the alien ship crawled toward the edges of their territory, the crew looked out into the black void, expecting every shadow to hold another dreadnought, another soldier waiting. They felt hunted though nothing followed. The silence of space pressed heavier than ever before. The commander whispered to himself that the galaxy had lived too long believing humans were only stories. That lie had ended today. Now the truth would spread. Humanity had never been weak, never been gone. They had only been waiting for the right time to return. And the dreadnought they had awakened was only the beginning. The alien vessel drifted slowly into the edge of their home system, broken and scarred, dragging the nightmare behind it like a shadow that would never fade. On the command deck the crew sat in silence, their eyes hollow, their bodies weak from fear. None of them spoke of escape anymore, none spoke of victory, they only carried the weight of what they had seen. The commander stared at the stars ahead, but his thoughts were still trapped in the dark where the dreadnought waited. He could feel the human's voice echo in his skull, the words that promised death if they returned. Yet even far away the memory of its glowing eyes and merciless tone burned in his mind. As they limped toward their planet, messages were already being sent from their damaged ship, cries for help, reports of attack, warnings that made little sense to their people. The crew knew no one would believe them at first. They would be called liars or cowards. But the dreadnought had ensured its story would spread. The scars on their ship, the data burned into their systems, the fear written on every survivor's face would be proof enough. The truth would spread like fire. Humanity had not died. Humanity had hidden. And now it was waking. The science officer still clutched the stolen data, his hands shaking as he whispered of other dreadnoughts, sleeping guardians left in forgotten corners of the galaxy. The one they had awakened was not alone. It was only the first. The crew shuddered as they imagined hundreds of such ships waiting, each carrying soldiers like the one they had seen. The commander clenched his jaw, rage fighting with despair. He had led his people into the jaws of a predator, and now he was forced to bring that predator's warning back home. They had not been spared because of mercy. They had been spared because the human wanted them to carry fear like a weapon. The closer they came to their world, the heavier that burden felt. Some of the crew begged to keep silent, to erase the data, to hide the truth and live in ignorance. But the commander shook his head. The choice was not theirs anymore. The truth was alive in them. Even if they spoke nothing, the terror in their eyes would betray them. Their people would know. Their leaders would know. Soon the galaxy would know. As they entered orbit, their ship systems flickered one last time. Strange signals pulsed through the wreck, the same symbols they had seen before on the dreadnought screens. The crew gasped as the words translated into their language, glowing across every console. "You should not have scanned us." The crew fell silent, trembling, realizing the human was still watching them from across the void, his reach stretching farther than they thought possible. The message faded, but the terror remained. The commander stood, his body heavy, his voice hollow as he ordered the ship to land. But deep inside he wondered if it mattered. The humans' warning was already in their systems, their signals, their minds. It would spread whether they wished or not. As their battered vessel descended toward the planet, the commander closed his eyes and saw once more the face of the awakened soldier. He saw the glow in his eyes, the calm in his voice, the promise of destruction. And he understood the final truth. The dreadnought was not just a relic of the past. It was a messenger of the future. Humanity had left these machines not only as weapons, but as signals, calling cards to remind the galaxy of what waited in the dark. One had awoken now, but more would follow. The crew stepped onto their homeworld as broken survivors, but they carried a seed of fear that would soon grow into wildfire. Leaders would demand answers. Armies would prepare. Civilizations would tremble. And far away, in the endless void, the dreadnought floated once again in silence, its lights dimming, its soldier watching with patient eyes. The human did not pursue, for he did not need to. His warning was already delivered. His purpose was fulfilled. Yet deep inside the dreadnought more chambers waited, more pods sealed in shadows, more soldiers ready to wake when the time was right. The galaxy thought humanity was gone, but now it would learn the truth in whispers, in panic, in screams. The commander knew that the first strike was only the beginning. Humanity was not returning. Humanity had never left. They were waiting, and the galaxy had just heard their first words. The revelation was clear, and it was terrifying. The humans were coming back.